My name is Alistair McKenzie. I am a former trial attorney, a small business owner, a developer, and one of the founders of A Storied Life. Do I remember how Belmont Hall, the idea for it, began? Yes. So a buddy of mine, Jordan told me that there was this thing going on in town called CivicCon, which was unknown to me at the time. It was a series of speeches once a month by urban planners and architects and developers, economists, and all sorts of people that were kind of in the development and urban planning space that a man named Quint Studer in Pensacola had put together with a guy named Christian Wagley to kind of talk about how to make a community a better community and a vibrant community, more economically successful and resilient community. I didn't know anything about development at the time. The thought had never crossed my eyes actually to know anything about it. My buddy Jordan said I should go, so I went with Jordan to the first one, well the second one, he'd gone to the first one. And my eyes kind of opened to what development is and what it can do for communities, strengthen them economically and also just make them better places to live. After seeing about, I think, 7 or 8 of the speeches over the course of months, Jordan and I took a look around the room at one of the CivicCons, and unfortunately what we saw was that most of the people there were retirement age almost, and there were not a lot of young people there. And we were like, well, if this is who's here in Pensacola, developing Pensacola, then our future looks, questionable as to what can happen in Pensacola and what can be done in Pensacola to make it a more vibrant community. Quint had already done so much in the last 15 years to make Pensacola a great community through the Maritime Park and changing Main Street and Palafox there with Bodacious and what he and Rishi had done. And there wasn't really anybody besides Quint starting to kind of push that envelope further. And there were also just not a lot of young developers in town. So Jordan and I, both natives of Pensacola and having returned here as adults, wanted to ensure that our families that we were raising here would love Pensacola, and also to ensure that Pensacola would just become a better city. And what we learned through, CivicCon, we decided that we needed to put into something. And it was apparent to both Jordan and I at the time that we should start putting something together. So we just started meeting every Thursday at Palone's downtown and just started having a conversation about what is development, what do we want for Pensacola, what is it that we need to do to make Pensacola a better place, and what kind of business is a business that would do that. Jordan and I both luckily have been, well fed, I guess, for a lack of better terms in our life. We love food a lot and we love beverage a lot. We had that in common even growing up. And we kind of knew it needed to center somewhat around that kind of thing. And Jordan and I were talking one day at one of our meetings, I think it was a few months into the meetings, when we were trying to sort out exactly what this first project was that we needed to do, what would be most impactful for Pensacola and best for Pensacola. And I talked about my experiences with my family going over to Scandinavia every summer because my wife is Swedish. And we would end up traveling around Scandinavia every time we go, and somehow we always end up at these things called food halls and public markets in every city that we would go to. They were never on our itinerary. We never really thought about going to them. We just always ended up at them. It was like gravity, just kind of like draws you in cities to these things, these food halls and these public markets. And it struck me when I was at one of them that seemed to be the thing that would kind of give us a good business and a good glue to what we were trying to accomplish, and making a good business in Pensacola and making it a place where everybody would want to come to and gather to. In my discussion with it with Jordan, Jordan was like, yeah, he basically at the same time came up with the same idea. He had been to several as well himself in the United States, and also I think in Lisbon, Portugal. Maybe it was Barcelona, I don't remember exactly which one. And he was talking about his experiences there and just how they're so good for communities. And so we started exploring, what does a food hall look like? What is the business of a food hall? I come from the background of being a trial attorney, a plaintiff's trial lawyer, and Jordan is an architect and general contractor. And while we had no development experience, we did have business experience. I've been running a business for 6.5 years. Jordan himself has been, a part of an architectural practice, and I think maybe, or you were working for other people when you were an architect. So didn't run your own business there, but you helped with family business before with your dad. And then you had experience, managing construction projects and things like that. So we started talking about the idea, and we formulated a concept for what we wanted to do, and it's always been more than just a food hall, actually. One of the large components and problems that we saw in Pensacola that we know needs to be solved and still needs to be solved, because Belmont Hall is not there yet, is that families downtown needed a place to gather. In fact, people just needed a place to gather downtown. We have lots of restaurants and bars on a downtown strip, but there's no central gathering place really where people come together and mingle and hang out and kind of just chat and enjoy themselves over food and drink.